Hey folks, welcome back to another video, part of our not so regularly scheduled programming, back on Gran Turismo 7 in Daily Race C around Deep Forest Raceway in the Porsches. We're running the Renault in the previous couple of races. Wasn't really working out, so opted for the Porsche as everyone else seemed to be going for in the stunning default livery. And, not a particularly good qualifying down there in 13th in Class B. But we get underway in what is sure to be a pretty exciting race, I would have thought, starting from 13th. Hopefully we're competitive. Already going on the offensive on the Dutchman Eddie in yet another Porsche, but this field was full of Porsches and Genesis, actually. That seemed to be the main choices that people were going for in this. A huge slide out of that corner there. It's an awkward braking zone, that one, because you're sort of starting to brake while you're turning, and it just wants to send the back end round. We survive it though after what was pretty carnage-filled hairpin, and we move already up to P9, which I'll take that. Powering down the straight now, starting to get in the slipstream of Zepe, the Spaniard, who you'll see quite a lot of here. We ended up quite a few battles with this guy, which were always a lot of fun. And those two having a bit of a squabble up ahead, so we thought, we'll hang fire a little bit on this run as we bring it through the twisty final sort of middle and last sector. Is a lot of fun around here, that's for sure. Trying to just catch that slide there. Not easy to keep hold of these cars. The Renault was pretty drivable before, but the Porsche had the pace if you're able to keep it on the straight and narrow. So we move on, still in 9th here, and still fairly solid opening first lap. 14 laps of this race, a mandatory pit stop required, but we don't need to take on any fuel, which is good, as up-tempo Robin had a bit of a moment, so we inherited that place for free. We'll take that. But yeah, 14 laps around here, mandatory stop. Started on the mediums, we opted to go quicker at the beginning, have the pace at the start. It seemed like a bit of a split strategy through the field. Even when we're racing in the Renault, it's the same sort of situation. So I thought we'll go on the attack in the first instance and try and make up as many places as possible. Trying to get a bit of a move done on here on Zepe. We made up another place for free, up to 7th. We haven't really made up many legitimate places yet because everyone's been batting each other off the track, which is pretty standard dailies, to be honest. But yeah, looking ahead now, up into 7th as we close up and try and make more moves while the tyres are in a good window. There's barely any wear on them at the moment, only a couple of laps on them, and certainly making the most of that as we go for a very persuasive move up the inside before we hit the infield. That's definitely legal. It seemed like you could take a lot of track limits here, to be honest, which we definitely took advantage of. And yeah, moving up to 5th there as well now, as those two started squabbling. He put himself out of position. Not really wise, but we take advantage. That's what it's all about, keeping yourself out of trouble, keeping your nose clean, and just making up positions where you can, reducing your overall race time. That's what it's all about. We've got the mediums, and we know a few of these folk around us are probably running the hard tyre, and we don't want to get caught up behind them because it's just wasting our time and our opportunity for a good result here. Speaking of which, beginning to challenge the Nissan. It's the Nissan, yeah. Going side by side up this very fast start of the lap and getting the move done. Not really. Never mind, not quite getting the move done there. A bit like the first lap, getting a bit out of shape on the way into the hairpin. And 9 Jim. I'm going to have fun pronouncing all these. 9 Jim going for the move down the inside, and we're all drag racing down towards the next 90-degree corner. Absolutely flat out down here, despite the kinks in the road, and we end up in a podium position at this point of the race, which is awesome, and we'll sort of hope to hold on to that, even though there's some very quick guys behind us who will be challenging the whole way, that's for sure. So we've got Eddie Brown and CPT Fred up the road, who are a bit of a squabble themselves, but they've disappeared, so not expecting to catch them, but we want to sort of consolidate this position and try and break away, get that 8 tenths gap, so they're not drafting us and getting an advantage later on in the race by reducing their time overall. But we look ahead and we did sort of make up that gap, but tyres are starting to wear off. I ran a bit wide, and it was criminal behaviour, frankly. The game clearly thought that was the case, with a 1.5 second penalty being awarded, because, well, that was just out of order, wasn't it? But no, we move, and to be honest, at this point, lap 6 was about right to get off the medium, because even though there's a few other cars on the mediums who are running a bit further than me, I just thought with the way they were going, they're starting to drop off, and I'd much rather get the undercut, even on fresh hards. Whether that's the right strat, I don't know. I don't think it is. I don't. It's really picked up doing dailies again recently, so in terms of the optimal strategies, I'm not entirely sure. We do that stop, move on to the hards, our mandatory switch of tyre, and stay in P6. But Legendarian, I had no idea he was going to go for this, to be honest. That's why I turned in on him a little bit. Went for the move there and went up to P6. I ended up P7. Served my penalty. Damn. And we do then, as a result, slip down to P8. So not a good return at the start of the... after our pit stop. But, you know, we're still in a good spot to capitalise. There's a few drivers out there who still need to make their tyre switch. You know, a few already doing so. The guy that went past us is in, as well as Hendrik Lamar, nice name, the Dutchman there. So we move up to P6. Gained yet another position in those few laps because, to be honest, not a great deal happened. Zeppe just beginning to catch us. The old Castello and Tony Mania, the Italian and French guys, we went past them as well. Back into our position we were running before in P3. I think we might have been P2 as well for a brief moment, but we end up back in P3. We look ahead a couple more laps because, again, it was quite quiet. But all that time, we had this Spaniard, as I mentioned earlier, Zeppe, closing in on us. And I must say that Genesis was very, very powerful in this configuration. I mean, the Porsche was good, don't get me wrong. Very, very good. But the Genesis was very quick also. And for a few laps, he was closing in. And it got down to this lap, and this was arguably the closest battle of the race. And the whole thing was fair. Really, really well done on the part of the Spaniard. And you can see he's really closing in here in that draft. But we held a good line going into the apex, and taking very different lines. I opted to direct towards the apex. He stayed wide and cut in, but in the end we've evened out, and I guess that's the beauty of balance of performance. So it's doing its job at the moment. And again, he's in the slipstream, and I thought he's going to go for this. I'm going to have to be really careful. So I opted to move right a bit in order to try and cover it off. And then, is that moving under braking? Let me know. It might be. But, you know, no harm done in that sense. It wasn't like he was diving down the inside, so I think it was okay. But we stay in position, we stay in P3. We're desperate to try and hold on to this and get a nice little podium after some trickier races in the Renault, as I say. But looking much better here, even with a few oversteering moments and that iffy penalty earlier with the scraping of the wall. But it's not a disaster, it's definitely not. We're clearly on the pace and just looking to consolidate this. If anything, he seemed like he dropped a couple of attempts at this point. He wasn't all over the back of me like I thought he would be. And so, you know, looking ahead to that final lap, it sort of stayed that way. We sort of kept him at arm's length. Didn't really make any major mistakes. The tyres are still in good nick. We weren't really going to challenge for P1 and 2. They were too quick. 9 Jim and Eddie Brown, congrats, because, you know, absolutely solid pace. Particularly the Brit, he was gone. He's absolutely gone. We were still probably at the end of Sector 2 and he was coming up to the finish line, to be honest. So, fair play. Fair play to them. And it was a really enjoyable race. Had some good battles, and particularly with Zeppe, so fair play to him, and shout out to him for a good old battle. And it's going to continue. We did another one. So we thought, oh, we're not satisfied with third place. Let's have another go. So we've learnt a little bit in terms of where the track limits are, what the optimum strat is. Well, we sort of stuck with the same strat anyway. But we knew the car was good, and, you know, we're starting in a better position now. We did a little bit better on a quali lap, up to P9 to begin the race, so we're not having to get past too many of the cars near the back this time around. So, again, looking for a clean start. And, you know, we're in a good position to make up some ground on the opening lap. A few of the same guys in here, including Zeppe, as you can see, Legendario, Duppy Guy, nice name. So, yeah, looking in a good position to make up some places, as we already do so, into the hairpin. And, you know, I'm not sure whether Leo knew I was there, or, you know, we got a little bit out of shape. Might have lent on him a bit. But it's all good. We move. And yeah, it's, honestly, with these first laps, just all about survival, frankly. And yeah, optimum for the same strat because, you know, if it ain't broke, right? I didn't see necessarily a problem with the approach we were taking. I thought if we start on hards, then we're not really going to have the pace to fight anyone on the opening lap. Unless you're already at the front, it's probably worth starting mediums to get the pace at the beginning and make the most of it. But some carnage at the start with, I think, yeah, that was the Nissan getting caught up with Zeppe, I think it was as well, actually. Someone did. Into the wall. So we make up a couple of positions for free again. You know, no complaints there. Already up to P6 on the back of the Lamborghini. Damage Inc. Gaming. Again, the creativity on names is wonderful. It's one of the upsides of Dailies, that's for sure. As me and Zeppe come to blows, making up for the last race where it was so clean that we thought, oh, we have to make up for it, and of course chaos down the straight. But yeah, no harm done. I'm sweeping through this corner. At least this track is wide enough for side-by-side action. That is an upside as well. It's a lot of fun, and a throwback, of course, to the old games where this, you know, is specifically for Gran Turismo and goes back to, say, the earlier games, and is still a classic. You can't complain. It flows really, really well, and makes for a good daily race. In the GT3s as well, it does flow very well. We had another spinner down at the hairpin, of course. So, sort of gained a position, but Zeppe went ahead of us. So, making up ground and a few cars around us doing what they need to do. Well, we sort of lent on Zeppe. Look, I couldn't really work out who was more at fault for that. It looked like he was already losing the back end, but I'd take responsibility if I sort of helped him round. Apologies. But we stay out of trouble, no damage. Continue to look ahead and try and make a move on this Lamborghini, which is no slouch, by the way. In a straight line, that Lamborghini is really, really quick. It's a bit like the Porsche. It's a bit oversteery, but a little bit more than the Porsche. So it doesn't really cater to me. I don't, you know, I like it as a, you know, something you put on your bedroom wall, a poster or something, but not as a car to drive in dailies. I don't think. A little bit tail happy, a little bit excited. It's not really my taste. But the Porsche's serving pretty well, and we're getting a bit of a draft on Damage Inc. And not quite in a position to be able to make a move yet. But the green Porsche, the Hulk coming down the inside and smashing everyone off at the hairpin. And even looks like a monster as well. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Not so much on the penalties though. He gets knocked back a bit as we get the draft and start to pull a bit of a move on Damage Inc. I think we've got the overlap. We have indeed, just before the next corner, which is what you want. And up to P4, so that's a good return. It's only lap 3, and we're up from P9 to P4. Look ahead another lap, and this was pretty much the only big mistake of the race. We clip that wall, and it sort of pulls us in. Nice physics. But, you know, it's our mistake. We ran it a bit too wide. Washed, obviously. But yeah, it's sort of giving up that position back to the Lambo. Someone else ahead of us made a mistake. I think it was Vincent's, because we were third. Yeah, we were third. We lost someone else has lost a position there. So yeah, down to P4, but still in a good spot to come in shortly, which in fact is this lap. So again, we're sticking with that lap 6 strategy to switch onto the hards. Didn't really go wrong for us in the previous race. There's no need to switch it up. So, team doing a wonderful job getting the tyres switched out in no time at all. Fuel guy's been laid off because we don't need him. And we come out in P11, you know, as we were basically doing undercut. We've ended up behind quite a few cars, but we know we're going to make those positions up and, you know, we're in a bit of clear air. So for the time being, we can sort of make up a bit of ground and, you know, reduce that overall race time. So the last thing you want is getting into battles here and tripping over each other. It just ruins it for everyone, and it's not helpful. It's just going to let those that are in clear just run away. That's the gist of it. As we, you know, capitalise on the fresher tyres we have to get down the inside of DTC Darshu in a stunning Porsche, I must say. That's a lovely livery. and you know, it's the Rothmans, I think, actually, and you know, we already up to P6 as well. Legendario and another car coming in, so you can see it's a mixed bag on the strategy. There's a few split ideas. I think a few people are opting for the hards or running their mediums up to like lap 9, as you can see there. Barani and Leo, I think, as well, all running their mediums a bit further. And I don't know, maybe it was quicker than running the hards, I'm not sure. Maybe, you know, I've heard that even used softs are quicker than fresh hards because of the way this game is. But I wasn't sure, I just couldn't be sure, and I thought, well, you know, the logic is that if they're starting to wear out, do the undercut, get on some fresh tyres that last a bit longer, and so far it was working. I mean, we're running P3 now, and we've sort of broken away from everybody else, which is what we want, really. And as I say, it sort of worked then, because we were a lot closer to those cars previously, so whatever we've done has worked. And that's no complaint from me, that's for sure. And I thought we'd settle for P3 at this point, which, again, I'm not going to turn my nose up at. But, as you can see, yellow flag just up ahead, and El Tiehuevo, Spaniard, found his way into the wall on the penultimate lap. Absolute disaster for him in the final sector. And, yeah, absolutely brutal. But he was driving very, very well up to that point. Samsey, meanwhile, again, doing an Elliott Brown from the previous race and just absolutely disappearing up the road. No answer to him whatsoever, unless we happen to be starting farther up the field. But even then, it's very, very good pace. But we come up to the end of the race. A third and a second after not really doing very many dailies, let alone uploading anything. So I'll definitely take that, and I'll definitely be running the Porsche a bit more. And this was a lot of fun, so do expect a few more videos coming in the near future as I get into a bit more of a swing of things, because I've missed doing this. So let me know what you think, and thank you all very, very, very much for watching. Goodbye.